Welcome to Get Serious. Excited to be diving into this one today. So I know I had a podcast, I want to say around a week ago, again, where I just reoriented my Sage Mode AI project to be focused as a chief of staff, really trying to be less reactive and just having way better operational execution within the business. Again, where I think we've gotten to this size and success in spite of being overly reactive and not nearly as organized as we need to be to get to the 10 million, 100 million, billion-dollar level. It's just going to require kind of a totally new operating system to improve upon what we've done so far. And I know I've commented a few times. I'm really enjoying this newer blog, My Next Billion by Srinath Srivatsa. Again, he joined as managing partner at acquisition.com, the Hormozis business. In the last couple months, I had never heard of this guy before, but a real rock star, which again, I know I commented before, but it's a real reminder where, it's so hard to pierce mainstream awareness or even 1% of mainstream awareness with, regardless of your accomplishments. So that just kind of goes to show you just stick with what you're trying to do, stay focused, and, people don't care until you win, right? And even when you do win, most people are never going to know who you are anyway. So it's still more of a freeing principle. And again, this guy has built and exited a couple billion-dollar businesses, and, still I would say probably has less than 1% of recognition across the US, maybe even 0.1%. So that is just something to consider. And so he created this, he drafted a blog post specifically about this, like what I was trying to do with the chief of staff within the last week. And it was just this sprint system, which he calls his $1 billion time design. You can look it up as well here. And so, to recap it a bit, and the overall principle here is you have to create tomorrow today, and that what he's learned across his past 20 years of operating is stress isn't a scheduling problem, it's a design problem. And this is exactly what I was running into. And his first line within the blog post is most billion-dollar operators never ask, what should I do today? I think that is exactly the issue that I was running into, and knew that this had to be fixed. So it's just speaking to me directly on what I know needs to be the new standard, since I know we won't get to the next level unless we operate better here. So he just created this system, and I'm not sure when exactly he started it, but he just runs his entire life now in just 2-week sprints. And so they've been designing a software as well here too. There's that's a whole part of, software design typically is you just operate in sprint. And so now just these 2 weeks, any block that he has to work with, there's no trying to fit in more to a certain sprint. It's either, there's no having to weigh a yes or no here. It's if it isn't within this sprint, it just moves on to the next one. And so then, you don't have to go back and forth with potential, reactivity on, hey, what should I necessarily be prioritizing? It just keeps, focus more and more on what you need to accomplish at the end of that sprint. So you could actually figure out, do you hit your set of projects and goals that were oriented for that sprint, and you either hit them or you don't. So there's actually guided principles and outcomes that you're orienting around. You'll avoid kicking the can down the road routinely. So I really like that. And then he just has this buffer principle, which I've started to implement a bit more here, but now it's just a little bit more firm. And through some life events, he just started, within the last few years, just blocking every Friday. So that is just an overflow day, to where everything that didn't get done earlier in the week can just be knocked out and caught up on Friday. Instead of for most of us, including myself, the weekend becomes the overflow day. And all of a sudden, there's no real recovery time, because then all of a sudden, Monday is just about to hit you like a brick wall, because you're just trying to catch up. And so I've tried to start adapting that more, where it's like, I know I can operate better too when I give myself a little bit more free time and let my, subconscious do some work over the weekend, and like let myself refreshen up so I can just continue to sprint and sprint and sprint accordingly, versus just like overflowing onto the weekend. And then there's no real separation from consistently working. And like, there's plenty of times that I might, can still enjoy doing things over the weekend, but I'll feel more pressure generally. And like, I would rather just have it be more of if I want to do something, it's my choice, versus more of just like, I need to get this done because I'm just behind schedule and facing deadlines here. And so he was just remarking that at one of his companies, the folks who had buffer days, and like they actually really protected them, that they were out producing the constantly available operators by like 3-1, like really crazy. Would want to see some of the hard data there, but just taking him at his word. And it's it's just strategic capacity. That's what he really indicates. Not like, a Friday, just a buffer day. I can just relax here. But it's just, okay, it gives you the opportunity to work uninterrupted, because you're not being reactive to other things that were just placed there to knock things out. So the other piece too that he mentioned is just also on Friday, and I built this into one of my AI projects as well, is just this review preview. And so, every Friday evening before kind of shutting down, he'll go through every single meeting and task on the calendar from that past week, and just, note down, okay, what are there any other follow-ups that need to be done? Close any open loop, what needs to be still put in motion here. So like, you don't like worry, did this slip through the cracks or anything like that. Just like make sure, okay, boom, I've gotten my key items done by Friday. And I've tried to be like a lot, and that's like the nature of our business in real estate too, working with title companies and banks and all, et cetera. Like it's kind of like forced. Hey, a lot of this stuff won't necessarily get done over the weekend. Maybe some potential interest in properties, brokers, do a lot of business over the weekends, but like anything, transactionally is just not really going to happen. So, it's kind of a force to close that loop. And then he'll scan, the 2 weeks forward, which is, generally going to be the next, sprint. I guess it could be, the end of one sprint, and then the next one is just like, okay, scanning the calendar. What do I need to prepare for? Major deadlines, etc. So it's just like kind of reorienting. Okay, what does my mind need to be thinking about that's coming up here? So then again, there could be like less pressure, like what he calls like Sunday scaries, which I've certainly felt with before. Like, oh my god, I have all this stuff coming up. And still deadlines to hit that. The week is about to start, and I just like haven't really prepared for them. And but yeah, if you can knock that out Friday, again, it can give your mind more room to operate over the weekend. And then this one was really unique and almost kind of scared me thinking about it a little bit, just because like I protect my sleep and everything so much. But he says that every 2 weeks he'll have one day where he will just tell himself that he won't go to bed until he finishes this particular project, like no matter what. And he just says like this just produces self-trust, because if you can show yourself that you can actually get things done when you tell yourself that you're going to do them, then you just develop this unshakable confidence in your own commitments, as he says there. And so this is what, like, I'm a very consistent worker in day after day, but I really like protect the sleep and health and so forth. And like the thing, oh man, when I know I can't do my best work after, generally after like 3-4 in the afternoon, it definitely starts to diminish. But especially like, trying to, I don't know when I'm going to go to bed, just keep working on things until something gets done. Like I can see that's a really powerful concept. And honestly, like the fact that this one scares me the most out of all the frameworks is probably where I potentially have the most growth, because that is an area where it's like I have routinely just kicked the can down the road for certain more annoying or hairier projects that eventually get done, but it also like kind of shakes, okay, am I being realistic about, am I actually going to do this by my timeline? Or it's so easy in your Asana or task manager, you say it's for today, but then it's like, it's today, just got away from me. I'm not going to have the energy to do it. Like, then it shifts to tomorrow, and then the next day, and the next day. Sometimes, like, I'll have, I'll orient my task manager just, in weeks. There's one week long task, and then there's a bunch of subtasks during the week. Sometimes I'll have like a week task that I wanted to get done, and it'll sit up there for, sometimes even a couple months of just like, yeah, just keep pushing it off. And so like that would be like opportune times for like, okay, you have just not done this. You've shown yourself that you're not doing this. Like, okay, just make the commitment. You're not going to bed until you do this. And so, Sharon just says, that's the single biggest productivity hack that he's ever had. I mean, I think he backs it up, right? Like, $2 billion exits behind him. So like, I'm paying attention to what he's saying. And then, he's just like indicating, the hidden truth about burnout. I just want to quote this as well too, is like, what most entrepreneurs get wrong is like, burnout doesn't come from working too hard. It comes from working hard without seeing results. You can totally relate to that. Like, it comes from breaking promises with yourself. It comes from letting constant urgency override strategic importance. But, when you design tomorrow today, you eliminate decision fatigue. When you protect buffer time, you eliminate overwhelm. And when you keep promises to yourself, you build unstoppable momentum. So I really appreciate that phrasing, because I think out of like anything that will help me get to the next level and my company to the next level, it's implementing principles like this, like the operational execution and, just strategy of designing days and weeks just has to be so much better, like huge gap to fill there. And so then he says, every night he asks himself, okay, what is one thing I can do better or I can do tomorrow to make it better than today? And so you just ask it consistently. And I try, like that's not like a new phrasing, but, it's a good reminder when you're trying to make improvements, because like, okay, what am I actually going to do here? And so like, all of this comes back to, okay, what standards are you holding yourself to? And, if I'm really trying to operate at the level of these guys, the level of these folks who have achieved these type of results, like it's not by accident, right? It's because they've designed these systems. And so am I just going to read it and then move on to the next article or whatever? Like, oh yeah, that's nice. Or is it just okay, let's start putting this into practice. And as soon as I read this article, it's like, okay, let me start orienting my calendar more. Like I'm going to, not just add things to my Asana block. It's just, okay, let's put in the calendar. I'm knocking out this task. What is actually realistic? And so then I'm getting, because that is the number one thing to do here, is like not asking, what am I going to do today when I just show up to the office? So hopefully that is helpful. One of the hardest things we can do as an entrepreneur, and I love the end of this, is just, outworking the world is optional. Outworking yourself is not. Quite philosophical to actually think about there. To me, it's just more of a reminder, like, always, ourselves are always kind of like resettling back at like a regression to the mean, like keeping the temperature lower in terms of what we can actually do. But like, we have to outwork ourselves, because like just the status quo is just not what is going to get you to the next level. So you just have to operate with understanding who you are, and then just design those systems in place so it like kind of leaves you no choice but to succeed. So that is how you design tomorrow instead of drowning in today. SeriousLand.capital for any of your funding needs. Zero cost review of your land deals at Land Daily Diligence Facebook group. And landpricer.ai for the most reliable land pricing tool on the market. Take care, everybody. Talk to you next time. Bye.